Every place where we come through, there was lots of trucks. Weyburn, there must have been 250 trucks waiting. In every town that we come in, there was more joining every time. I think everybody's sick of the government that's ruining us. Other than that, everybody's just here to try get rid of this carbon tax. Why doesn't the federal government do like our provincial government? I got 20% back on my solar system. Why doesn't the federal government also give us an incentive to put this in? Instead of giving money to other countries to stop carbon, why doesn't he give everybody in Canada a chance to do like I'm doing?
We have a lot of members that are going to be negatively impacted by a carbon tax in the province of Saskatchewan. A lot of our guys rely on fossil fuels, unfortunately, to build Saskatchewan's highways and transportation networks. So there's a lot at stake here in terms of jobs and competitive advantage or disadvantage in this case for our members. We're looking at well over $1 million in additional expenses for the industry that's unfortunately going to be, offloaded onto the taxpayers because the major procurer of our service is government, whether it's provincial, federal, or municipal. So ultimately, the taxpayers are going to be, facing a heavier burden because of this.
But we're going to make polluters pay and put money in your pockets.
There is an imperative to put a price on pollution, and if there are costs associated with for average families, we will more than compensate those families for those costs.
Well, how are they going to do that? They talk about this rebate as if you're going to get the money back, and then you're going to get a premium, so you're going to get even more money back. How do they calculate that, though? That was a part that was lost from the conversation.
We fight on the beaches, we shall fight on the landing grounds.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is The Morning Moment. We're on weekdays, 11:45 Eastern. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. Carrying on from my previous podcast, I want to point out yet again those communist Canadians that are supporting the government in Canada, in the country of Canada. Canadians are supporting politicians who are lying to you. I can't put it any plainer than that. Why would they lie? Well, that's unclear at present. But what liberal communist politician wouldn't jump at more power and more control over you? By taxing you into submission, they think they will win. Liberals, by their very nature, are dumb. Yes, they are dumb. You only have to look south in the United States to confirm that. They think that the law of the land, it doesn't matter which country you're in, only applies to you, not to them. Trudeau lied continually, and he got away with it. He did blackface and got away with it. If that had been a Conservative or any other politician, they'd be gone in 60 seconds, but Liberals can do what the heck they like. However, at present, Canada is governed by the people of Toronto. Yes, it's that simple. But I think that's going to change in the next few years, whether or not they like it. Not to go off the subject too much, but the point I want to make to you about climate change is a simple one. I will keep banging this drum until people wake up and hear it. I'm going to give you a few examples, and then I'm going to go through them. Let's assume we act. We take them seriously. What do they expect us to do about climate change? They make vague promises to the UN about carbon dioxide and reducing it. So let's go down the list. Let's get to the nitty-gritty, shall we? As I like to call it. These so-called climate scientists think you should stop driving. So that's number one. Stop driving your cars. Okay. Number two, stop eating meat. Okay. Number three, stop using planes. All right. Number four. Any thoughts about number four? Well, I have one. Stop living in rural areas, thus alleviating the need for private transport. So let's not go any further. Let's unpack those four and just leave it at that. So let's look at number one. Stop driving cars. So if you stop driving your car, A, you can't get to work, can you? B, how would you buy food? Either because the stores aren't close enough to you, or you haven't got the money to buy the food because you can't get to work. C, you would lose your house, because if you didn't go to work, how would you pay your mortgage? Now that's only the beginning. You would be broke, because even if you could pay your mortgage, your house would be worthless, because no one would want to move there, where you live now. So that's number one. We can go into it in much more detail, but that's the gist of it. Number 2, stop eating meat. This would cause these farmers to go out of business. You can't, for the most part, turn a meat-producing farm into either a dairy or arable farm, for simple reasons such as terrain, if nothing else. So these farmers would go bankrupt and lose their farms. Number 3, stop using planes. Well, that's a little bit more difficult, isn't it? As far as I'm aware, I don't believe there's a commercially available electric plane yet. Now, airplanes today represent a massive part of many countries' infrastructure, allowing many and various types of goods and services to reach their customers, the end user, so to speak. So if you prohibit the use of commercial planes and plane flights, for instance, for people, let's just say the commercial ones are allowed, the cost of shipping alone by air would more than double. The result would undoubtedly be the collapse of the airplane service throughout the world due to the massive cost of shipping. People couldn't afford it. And at the end of the day, key products and services are moved by air, essential goods, shall we say, for modern life, and there would be loss of life. Now, additionally to that, the aircraft industry would be severely limited to military only, making them almost unviable as business entities. So let's talk about number 4, alleviating the need for private transport. This one, beyond any other step in modern society, would render a country helpless and divided, because it would be between those who were approved and not approved to either own, let alone use, private transport. The automobile industry, at a stroke, would cease to exist. So let's get right down to the nitty-gritty, to the final piece, the bottom line, any phrase you want to use. In Canada alone, the population is around 40 million, give or take. I would think that 35 million of that 40 million approximately would be unemployed, would be bankrupt, and homeless. I have just described to you, ladies and gentlemen, just part of the goals, believe it or not, of Agenda 2030 and its predecessor, Agenda 21. Why would anyone in their right mind want to destroy our way of life? But remember, your government, the government of Canada, has signed you up for this. And let me say this to you, no amount of smartphones or electric cars will reduce the carbon dioxide levels that they think that should be reduced to. With most of these measures being carried out, Canada would collapse. And to my American friends, be warned, it can and will happen to you if you don't stop them at the door. I'm not trying to scare you with this. I'm just trying to tell you what these people are up to. I know what they're up to in Canada. Trudeau is extremely dangerous. He's a smarmy little git who I've got no time for, and I'm extremely embarrassed to think that Canadians would vote him in again after the despicable things he's done, not only to his black face, but to Canadian citizens. He sold us down the river to the UN, and no amount of electric cars will make up the difference. I'm going to follow this up in the next few days, but please do your own homework on Agenda 2030, and I will be publishing more information about Agenda 2030 in the coming days. Please don't ignore this. This is not fictitious. This is real. And if it isn't in your country, it's coming to your country soon. 20 years ago, this is finally, 20 years ago, people like Bernie Sanders would have been arrested for treason, and now he's a politician, and now he's spouting out communism openly. So is it so far-fetched? And finally, why isn't George Soros being arrested for what he's up to, undermining American society? Ask yourself that. Please don't underestimate this. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Spotify, and email. We're on Spotify under the podcast section. Type in Canadian Politics with a twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio. EHRADIO, A-Radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday at 11:45 Eastern, and tell your friends and pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the mainstream media want you to know.